Hi, and welcome to this week's dynamic practice. It's called Shiny Shins, and the focus is on our lower legs. Those muscles here are largely in control of ankles and toes. It might be kind of odd to consider, but there are some muscles that extend and flex the toes, and most of the muscles of the ankles span the shins, and there's many of them, I think there's 11, that connect right below the knee. So these muscles are in control of ankles and toes. If we can work on the muscles of the shins, we can let our ankles be strong and stable, and so our knees have less to do while we're walking and moving throughout our day. Have a block and a strap at the ready, and also have a blanket. You can also use your mat, but we'll be getting a quad stretch up against the wall where our knee is going to be on the ground. So I have a mat set up there, and all you need is a little bit of wall space for there. But if you don't have an additional mat, you feel free to fold up your mat and you can use it as support, as cushion for your knee. So let's begin. Lie on the back, and we're going to start with our arms out in wingspan, so arms straight out to the sides. Our knees are bent and feet are flat on the floor. And as you inhale, take a deep breath in the belly. Big exhale. And as you inhale, you're going to rotate both arms back, so shoulder blades are going to scoop away from your ears. You're going to externally rotate your arms and arch your lumbar spine. So you breathe in the belly there, and on exhale, you're going to roll your arms forward, press your low back into the ground. Go back and forth like this a few times. Take a deep breath in, rolling your arms back and extending your lumbar spine on inhale. And then as you exhale, roll your arms internally and press your low back into the floor on exhale. Go back and forth like this a few times. To start mobilizing shoulders, to start mobilizing spine. And then we're going to add foot movement as you inhale. Also rock onto your heels, which means you lift your toes up as high as you can. And then as you exhale, press your toes down and lift your heels as high as you can. And go back and forth like this. Inhale is distal flexion. Exhale is plantar flexion. And that's in addition to the other two moves. So we can get the shoulders warmed up, the low back warmed up. And breathe into this a few more times. Okay, very good. And from there you relax back to center. Notice how your shoulders feel, low back, and then also feel the foot fall, feet into the floor. And so that was rocking back and forth on the feet. From here, I'd like you to press the right sides of our feet down. So it's the inside of your left foot and the outside of your right foot. The closest analogy I can come up with is as if you're pivoting while skiing. And then you exhale, come back to the center, and then you're going to press the left sides of your feet down. Now there's two ways to do this. One is by moving your knees in space, which means you're moving your hips. And the other way is ankle eversion and inversion. And I'd like you to focus on the second one. So even if you'd like to take your hands to thighs, and they might move a little bit, but see if you can inhibit the movement of thighs and really explore the motion of digging into the left side of your feet and digging into the right side of your feet, the footfall. So inner, outer edges, first on one side, and then you come back to center, and then you inhale, press the other side down. So we're starting to mobilize inner, outer ankles. And as you're doing this, also notice that you're using the muscles around your tibia and fibula. Those are your shin bone, the tibia, that's what most people call shin bone, and the fibula is to the outside of it. So, but notice how the muscles are working in your lower leg. Okay, very good. And then you come back to center there. Feel the foot fall. So we've rocked forward and backwards, we've rocked to the left and to the right. Now we're gonna torsion our tibia a little bit. Take your soles of your feet together, relax your knees out to the sides. And as you inhale, this is a two-part movement. As you inhale, keep your toes down and you're gonna lift your heels up as high as you can. This is external tibial rotation, and you exhale, come back down. Now keep the big toe mounds together as you lift your toes up. And do that without lifting your knees. Keep your knees down, lift your toes up, and exhale, come back to center, and go back and forth like this. So this is a little bit of ankle movement, but this is largely we're doing this because we're working on the rotation of the fibula around the tibia. So you might feel some work in the soles of your feet, maybe, around the ankle, but also feel the engagements in lower legs, around your shin bone. Go back and forth like this a few more times. It might feel like one foot can lift a little bit higher than the other. I'm starting to mobilize probably some less often used muscles here. Okay, very good. All right, and then release soles of feet flat on the floor. From here, grab your block, and you're going to take the block underneath hips. For Viparita Karani, we're going to take the legs, the feet up in the air, and try a couple additional foot movements here. So make sure this feels okay for your low back, and make sure it's easy for you to keep your legs up in the air. And you can hold them if you'd like, you can also bend them if you'd like. But as you inhale, you're going to open your toes. So that's a toe extension as far as you can. And then exhale, flex your toes like you're making a fist with your feet. And go back and forth like this a few times. I do this, I usually inhale as I open my toes, and exhale as I make the fist. So try that a few more times. And as you're working on this, so this is of course good work for the joints of the toes, but you also might be able to feel the muscles around shins. And depending on what like clothing you're wearing, you might even be able to see the movement along the outside tibia. As you open the toes, those toe extensors flex, and the belly of the muscle is actually closer to the knee than it is to the toes. So basically there's muscles closer to the knee and long tendinous cables that run down the leg and across the top of the foot to extend the toes. And there's similar ones, we won't be able to see them because they're behind the tibia, but you may be able to feel them. And then relax your toes and press your heels up on inhale so you can really feel the tibialis anterior work. And then as you exhale, you get the whole calf group working, and you go back and forth like this. So these are bigger muscles in our lower legs to get the ankles working. So go back and forth like this a couple times. And of course, really good work for the ankle joint. Movement helps nourish the joints, gets the synovial fluid moving across the joints. But you can also look at what your lower legs are doing. Okay, so there is distal and plantar flexion, and then you press your heels up. We did this on the floor. We're now going to do it in the air. You're going to turn the soles of the feet inward, and you're going to turn the soles of the feet outward. And you go back and forth like this. Press the heels up a little bit. So it's not, this is a slightly different move with the toes up, but the heels up, you get the inversion and eversion working. And so you might be able to feel some tibialis posterior and anterior working for you, as well as a muscle group called the fibularis, right on the outside of our legs. So you can feel that work. All right, and then we culminate that move with a couple big circles, so circular movements, really complex, so you might be able to feel the whole of your lower legs working for this ankle circle movement. So after several big circles with both feet together in one direction, go in the other direction. You try to push the boundary of your range of motion. Couple bigger circles in the other direction. All right. Very nice. And then from there, you release. Place your feet flat on the floor. Mind's eye to the lower legs, around the ankles, around the feet. Feel the mobility there. And then from here, engage your glutes a little bit to support your sacrum. Lift your hips, block out of the way, and you lower. And let's come up to seated. All right. So I'll mirror you for this first one. You can take your right shin in front of your left. And from here, if it feels okay, you can take your hands into your feet and press your hands into your feet to help flex the foot. Open your toes back toward the midline. And this may give you a bigger stretch, not only around the heel, but this may give you a bigger stretch along the outer legs. So if this doesn't work for you, don't do it. But if it feels okay, have your fingers to toes and draw your toes inward as you forward fold. Okay, it might mean that you don't go down as far, and that's fine. It just means different muscles are getting stretched. But forward fold as much as you'd like. Breathe into your low back a few times here. All right, and one more breath into your back body. Okay, and then come back up. You can lean back a little bit and switch. Left leg in front. You can leave your feet as they are. If you'd like to enhance the stretch around the feet and shins, with your hands, point your toes inward. You can distally flex the feet, and then you forward fold. It might create a more dramatic stretch around shins and potentially down the outside of the leg. So as you're forward folding, breathe back. Another few breaths here. Okay, great. And then inhale, you come up from there, release and come to hands and knees. And the next thing we're gonna do is take toes curled under. So spread your toes as widely as you can, and you're gonna place your toes on the ground. If your toe mounds come down, that's fine. If not, if your toe mounds are up in the air, just make sure that it's not feeling like a pinch on the front of your toes. If that is the case, stay where you are or lessen this. If it feels like a stretch on the bottom of the feet, you can lean back a little bit. For some people, not all of the toes are on the ground. I'm turning around for demonstration purposes here. For some people, not all the toes are on the ground. Maybe the pinky, the smaller two are up or something. That's fine. I'm really trying to focus on getting the big toe mound stretched. And we're gonna pause here. Another couple breaths. If you'd like, press the toes down into the floor, like you're trying to plantar flex the toes. Trying to flex them. And two more breaths here. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. One last time. Okay, great. And then come forward, wiggle your toes, move your ankles around. And then to stretch the front of the shins and top of the feet, point your toes back, and you can sit back toward the heels. If bending the knees doesn't work for you, like bending the knees this much, you can always take your block or a blanket between hips and heels. If it feels okay to sit up, this might be the stretch for you for the shins. So the first option, the advanced option, is if you'd like, you can always take your hands around the toes as such. So now I'm grabbing basically the toenail side of my toes with my hands and pulling them up. So that gives me a better stretch, or a bigger stretch, not necessarily better. But for me, it's a bigger stretch on the top of my feet. And I also feel that up the shins. So if you're trying this, take it very gingerly, mindfully, cautiously. For some people, even sitting back is too much. Don't worry about it. But for the people who can sit back easily, this is a way to get a little bit more stretch. Okay, if that option's done, you come forward, release, and we'll do option number 2. But first, I want to curl the toes under, press one heel back, and then you take the knee down, curl the other toes under, press the other heel back, legs straight. Take a deep breath in. Okay, And then you point your toes back again, come to seated. If this feels like enough stretch for the quads down the shins on the top of the feet, that's fine. If you want a bigger stretch along the front of the ankle, another way to do that is lean back a little bit and you shift all your weight onto the top of your feet and you lift your knees. So once again, this feels completely okay for my bones. All my joints are fine. I'm now getting, the only thing that's happening is I'm getting more of a stretch along the front of my shins and the top of my feet. If it feels like something is pinching, or if it feels like a really sharp sensation, get out of it. But for some people, this might give you the stretch that you've been looking for on the top of the feet. So this is another advanced option. 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. And one last time. Okay, and you come out of that. Again, curl. Extend one leg, curl the toes under, and press one heel back. All right, and then you try the same thing on the other side. Extend the other leg, toes curled under, press the heel back. And then from here, let's get into downward facing dog. So you're going to take a downward facing dog, and the dog is going to be wide. So it's a fairly wide-legged dog. So my feet are about mat's distance apart. I'm going to now internally rotate my legs, and I can't internally rotate too much, so your toes might be able to point further in than mine are, but it doesn't matter how much. Just make sure the knees are okay, and you're going to turn the toes inward, and you're going to press the heels away from one another, back and down. So they're actually going in 3 directions. This is to get the outer leg line, so you might get a little more outer leg stretch, IT band. You can lift your inner thighs up toward the ceiling as you press your outer heels out, back, and down. And so there's 2 or 3 more breaths here. You might be able to get outer calf stretch here as well. Some fibularis work. 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. And one last time. Okay, great. And you can step your feet together, step your feet forward, come up to the top of the mat, and let's all come up to standing in Tadasana before we do the rest of our standing practice. Feel the feet into the floor, lift your lungs up high, and really notice the footfall. Press your toe mounds down, press your outer, inner, and center heel down. Let's kind of notice the ability of the feet ground, of the feet to ground, and then feel what your lower legs are doing to make that happen. So if you press your feet down, more and more muscles in our lower legs activate. So take a deep breath here. Big exhale. Okay. Great. Grab your block. We're taking triangle next. I will mirror you again. So you're going to take your right toes out to the right. Of course, this is my left leg, but you're going to take your right toes out to the right. And then the back heel, which is where we're going to focus, the back heel goes a little bit further back than toes, as long as that's okay with the knee. So that same internal rotation that we had in downward facing dog. And then from here, you cut your front hip underneath the back, hand to block to floor, and you can roll your navel up. So choose a block height, whatever feels like it works for you, but you're going to roll your navel up. And then from here, you're going to pin that back outer heel down into the floor and float your toes up and lengthen them. So the toes are actually like plant stems. You're trying to lengthen the stems of the toes. And you press your back outer heel down as you roll your navel up. And that gets a good connection. Heel down, navel up. It gets a good connection down the stretch of the outside leg. Okay? So back outer heel roots, lift your toes a little bit. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. One last time. Okay, so to come out of this, bend your front knee a little bit, right knee bends, and you're going to drive your back foot into the floor and bring yourself back up to standing. All right, very good. Keep that connection to the foot. Bend your knees a little bit, switch legs, switch sides. So now your left toes are pointing to the left. Heel goes a little further back than your toes. And as long as that's okay for the knee, you can keep it there. From here, left hip slides underneath the right. You're gonna take your hand to block to floor. All right, and again, mind's eye to the back foot. You're gonna drive the foot through the floor, especially that outer heel. So it's not like you're trying to lift the inner arch, you're planting the two sides of your inner arch down, but you're also driving the outer heel down. That's gonna give you more of a stretch down the outside shin. Lengthen your toes. So toes are ungripping, toes are lengthening, they're ether, they're very directional, and you roll your navel up toward the ceiling. And all that's in the service of trying to get this outer leg line opened up. So not only IT band, but when you press the back outer heel down, you get the outside shin work as well. All right, and then 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale, take a big exhale, and one last time, breath in. Okay, great. Bend your left leg a little bit. Drive your back foot through the floor to come up. Take a huge inhale when you get up. Bend your knees and let's go. We're now going to take side angle. So block into the right hand again. But I'd like to focus on the back outer heel. You're going to press it down into the floor and you're going to keep it rooted. Inhale, your leg is straight. Exhale, send your right knee out. But notice your ability to press the outer heel down and try this a couple times in order to loosen up the outer ankle and the outer shin. The tendency is for you to roll onto the inside of the foot. Press the outer heel down. Outer heel roots into the floor. And so notice like you're being your outer heel is getting more challenged in side angle. Okay, and now we're going to commit to the side angle. So you bend your right knee forward. I'll take the block to the outside of the foot. So now I can press that leg into my arm. Roll navel up. This time if you like to reach your arm up or overhead, you could do that. But whatever's happening in the rest of the body, mind's eye stays down into the back outer heel. Root it down. Press the foot straight into the floor and lengthen your toes. So that's a lot of work for the shins. There's engagement there, there's mobilizing. And 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale. And one last time. Okay, great. So drive your front foot into the floor, drive your back foot into the floor, come up out of side angle, lengthen your right leg, bend your knees a little bit to switch. Okay, and so before getting in the side angle on this side, mind's eye into right heel, and you're going to pin the outer heel down, lengthen your toes. Inhale, the legs look like they're in a triangle. Exhale, the legs look like they're in warrior. And you're going to go back and forth like that, trying to tease a bit extra mobility out of outer ankle. So you keep that outer heel down. Feel the foot fall nice and solid. And now the ankle is able to handle this dynamic movement here in your leg. So notice that a couple more times. Lengthen toe stems. Keep the foot planted strongly into the floor. And then the next time you come into the warrior 2, also come into side angle. So you take your hand to block the floor to the outside of the leg. Press your front leg into arm. Roll your navel up and yogi's choice, arm up or overhead, whatever works for you. But you're going to press that outer heel down, lengthen your toes, and notice all that work in your right shin, around the right tibia and the fibula. Yeah, breathe into your side body. So good work for low legs. Hopefully they're feeling a little bit shinier. Take a deep breath in. Okay, great. And then from here, you drive feet into the floor and through warrior 2, and you extend the legs. Very good. Heel toe yourself closer together. All right, drive your feet down. Take a Tadasana. Drive your feet down, lift your lungs up, and really feel the power of the shins being able to engage, and that helps your ankles and your feet plant firmly into the floor. Okay, great. And then pyramid next. We're gonna do pyramid twice. And the first time we're doing it, we're focusing on the back heel. So right foot's forward. I am no longer mirroring you. Right foot's forward, back heel plants into the ground. And that's a critical cue. If it feels like your heel's up, you can always turn your toes out a little bit. Just make sure it's challenging, but not impossible to keep the back heel rooted, okay? So my right foot's forward, I'm gonna bend my front knee, turn the hips toward front toes, and then pubic bone back, heart forward, left hand to block the floor. Okay? And if you don't need to block, that's fine, okay? But you're gonna round the spine as much or as little as you'd like. Front foot, drive it into the floor, but now mind's eye into the back foot. You're gonna press that back outer heel into the ground. Press the whole foot into the ground and try to lengthen your toes. So toes are as long as possible. All right? So now a small movement here in your back heel. You're gonna lift your back heel for a moment. Roll your left hip forward another like 1/4 inch and then plug your back heel down. And that's going to get this big stretch on outer calf, or at least increase the stretch on outer calf and up the side of the leg. All right, so you pin your outer heel down, float your toes, and everything that's happening up front, just make sure it feels okay, but mind's eye into the back leg. Drive the back foot down and you're going to feel your lower leg light up. So we're strengthening, we're stabilizing, and we're mobilizing. Thanks to the shin. 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale, and one last time. All right, you can bend your front knee if you need some extra support. Press both feet through the floor. Inhale, you come all the way up. All right, and then you can step up to the front of your mat to Tadasana. Drive your feet through the floor. All right. Feel the contribution that your lower legs make to this, to the ability for your feet to drive down. And then left leg stays where it is, right foot turns, steps back, and the toes turn out to the side a little bit. And make it so that your back heel is on the floor as a possibility, but it might be a little bit of a challenge. So, especially for calf stretch, outer calf, and the Achilles tendon calcaneus. You just drive it down, lengthen the toes. From here, bend your front knee, turn your hips toward front toes, and then pubic bone back, heart forward. Your right hand goes to either the block to the floor, or if it doesn't feel untoward, you take your hand down. But as you're folding over your front leg, mind's eye is in the back outer heel. Lengthen your toes, press the back foot through the floor. So the power's in the back leg, and this mobilization is in the back outer ankle. All right, and then as a little bit of a micro adjustment, you're gonna lift your back heel up about 1 inch, roll your right hip forward a couple millimeters, and then you press your back heel into the floor. All right, that should make it a little bit more of a challenge for the back shin, the calf group. You keep on driving outer heel into the ground. Float your toes forward. And there's another few breaths here. Okay, great. If you need to, you can bend your front knee a little bit to help activate your front foot into the floor. Inhale, come all the way back up. All right, you bend your front knees, step up to the top. Pause there for a moment, take a deep breath in. Big exhale. And we will get back to pyramid, but as a midline break, you're now going to take a wide-legged forward fold. So both heels a little wider than toes. You can bend your knees a little bit, take your hands down to the floor. All right, good. So from here, for extra stretch in the dorsal line, you're gonna lift your heels up, bend your knees a little bit, lift your heels up, lift your tailbone up a little higher, and then keep your tailbone at that newer level and pin the heels down again. So really drive the heel, center of each heel through the floor. The tendency when the legs are wide, or in like basically all of these standing postures are the same. is the tendency is to dip into the inside, which really puts a lot of pressure on inside knee. So when you press the outer heels down just as much as the inner heels, for a lot of us, it takes a little more effort, but it winds up balancing the knees from left to right. So there's no one position that works for everybody equally. So you can press outer feet into the floor, inner feet into the floor, and notice its effect on your knees. Find some place that feels like a good balance between the inner part of the knee and the outer part of your knee. And notice that the ankle, the work in the ankle can make it easier for your knees. Another 30 seconds here with the strong work in the legs, but the subtle work of pressing inside feet down, outside feet down, and finding something that works just right for your knees. A couple more breaths here. All right. Good. So if you're able to come up with your legs this wide, go ahead. If you need to, heel toe yourself in a little bit. You can all bend the knees a little bit, drive your feet through the floor, and then inhale, press your feet down, lift your lungs up. You can also take your arms up overhead. So huge inhale here. Big exhale, press your feet down, and see that even upright, you might have control of how your footfall is influencing your knees, and to make sure that your knees feel just right and supported by your low legs and your shins. Okay. Very good. Take a deep breath in and exhale from there, release. Okay, so we're going to get into pyramid again. We will do everything we're doing with the back leg, and as an option, I invite you to take your block to the front of your mat. And this time the right foot is going to be, the heel is on the floor, your toes are up on the block. Now, we're going to get into this pose like this. If you need some wall space, like I'm a bit too far away from the wall, but even in a pinch, I can kind of like take my hand to the wall and fold down like this and really focus on the feet. So if you have a piece of furniture that doesn't move, or if you want to set up against the wall, or you can take your hand to a second block or something. So prop, furniture, wall. But from here, the back outer heel roots, the center of that front heel roots too. You bend your front knee a little, turn your hips toward the block, and then you take your pubic bone back hard forward, hand to wall, furniture, another block, or to the floor. Now press that back heel through the floor. Back heel through the floor. Press the big toe, little toe mound through the floor, and with the foot, the front foot elevated like this, you're going to get much more of a calf stretch. That's intentional. That's what this one's for. So you press the big toe mound down and slide your right hip back a little bit, and then from here you can slide your left hip forward. So it's a tiny bit, just like a degree or two of clockwise rotation, keeping your back outer heel rooted, keeping your front big toe mound rooted. And breathe into this as much as you are able to. So strong work in the legs, really dynamic work. Even though we're still, the movements are dynamic, the stabilization is dynamic. All right. Very nice. Take a deep breath in. Okay, exhale to come up. If you have confidence in your balance, you could always try it with the block, but you can also place your front foot onto the floor, bend your knee a little bit, and inhale, come up, and step up. Find your footfall, drive your feet through the floor. Feel what I hope is extra vitality, a sense of vitality in your lower legs and your ankles. Okay. Very nice. And we'll try that on the other side. You can move the block over so that your left heel is on the ground, left toes are up on the block. If you have to turn around, if you're using a piece of furniture or the wall, go ahead and turn around for that. Readjust your mat so you have something to balance with. And then from here, the back outer heel roots, press the center of the heel, front heel down, big toe mound roots. Bend your front knee a little bit, turn your hips toward the block, and then pubic bone back, heart goes forward, And you can take your right hand to a wall, to a piece of furniture, to another prop, or to the floor. All right. So this is big practice here. It's one of our apex poses here. So a lot of work in the back foot, back heel. Press that back outer heel down, even as you roll your right hip forward. And then all the extra stretch you can get into the calf, the tendon calcaneus here, you're going to press the big toenail down as you slide your left hip back. So yeah, let the pose do some of the work. Make sure you can still feel engaged. Your feet are pressing into whatever they're touching. Toes themselves can be ether elements, like floating, like they're lengthening. Yeah, and so feel all the work being done, basically from like right below the knee to around the ankle. 2 or 3 more breaths here. Okay, so to come out of this, if you're confident in your balance, you can keep the block there. Otherwise, you can move it forward a little, plant the foot, bend your front knee a little bit, and then inhale, come all the way up. And we come up to standing. So we have both feet side by side. Drive your feet through the floor. If you'd like, you can reach your arms up overhead. And now we're going to keep the center of each heel grounded, toes floating. And as you exhale, come into the deepest chair pose you can by taking your knees forward. And then you come back up. And then you exhale, come into the deepest chair by taking your knees forward. And then inhale, you come back up. So pause there. So I'm saying knees forward. There's basically kind of two types of chairs we can get into. One is the knees kind of stay where they are and the hips go back. And the other one, the one that we can focus on and really get some powerful work in the shins, is we try to keep our spine as vertical as possible and your knees get sent forward while you keep your heels planted. So basically, and my arms are up, but you can almost, like if you take your hands in front of your kneecaps, push your knees into your hands while keeping your heels down. Winds up being a lot of work for the shins. So knees are forward as the heels press down. And you might find, so I find that like my right heel wants to come up a little higher than my left one. I drive it down. Keep the knees going forward as the heels stay down. Float your toes. And 2 more breaths, pressing knees forward. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. Breath in. And then you drive your feet down. Come back up. All right. Very nice. Good. So take a deep breath in. And big exhale. Okay. Great. So we're going to get a quad stretch next. Let me move the strap out of the way. And so I have the blanket down, or I have my mat down. You can also use a blanket or your mat. Take it against the wall, and we're going to get a stretch in our left quad first, which means the right foot's forward, and you can take your left knee down onto the blanket as such. Okay, so several options here. My toes are curled under right now. That's option number 1. Toes pointed up is another option. So you can do whatever you want. That choice is going to influence how close you're going to get your knee to the wall. And in general, the closer you get your knee to the wall, the more knee bend you'll have and the more quad stretch you'll get. Okay? So feel free to stay here. You press your knee down. And from here, if it feels okay, you can come up. If you're up, slide your glutes toward the floor and lift your lungs up toward the ceiling. So that's, in effect, posterior rotation of your hips. And that should get you even more stretch along quad and perhaps even psoas. Okay, and just make sure whatever foot variation you're doing, it feels okay, especially if the toes are pointed up. A lot of people experience either calf or hamstring cramps. So if you need to get out of this and take a break, go ahead. We'll be here for another 2 or 3 breaths. Okay, great. So you can come out of that. So you can release and switch. So I'm just going to switch right into it. So now my left foot is on the floor. Okay, and again, options number 1 or 2. If you tried one option the first time, try it on the second side. It's also a good time to compare and contrast. If this second side is a lot tighter, feel free to take the knee further away from the wall. If it feels about the same, or you can make a choice as you wish. But if it feels a lot tighter, take the knee further away from the wall. You can also stay down here. If it feels okay, you can take your hands to thigh. All right, and then we're up. If it feels okay here, you would slide your glutes toward the floor and lift your lungs up toward the ceiling. Yeah, so several breaths here, breathing into the front side of your right hip. And so with all the work we've done side body work today, we've done forward folds, and we'll do a few more. But this is some back bend work here as well. And it's including the shins, including the ankle, in what is otherwise a big hip stretch, a big thigh stretch. Twice more. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. And one last time. Okay, great. And so you can make your way out of that. All right. And come up to standing toward the front of your mat. So we've released the back of the legs, the front of the legs, outside legs. We get some inner leg work to it by driving the inside of your feet down. And as you press your heels down, big toe mounds down, also feel that the lower legs are working too. So as you collect the feet, press them down, the muscles in the shins are working. Take a deep breath in, arms sweep up overhead, sun salutation to downward facing dog. Deep breath in, exhale, you bend your knees a little bit, forward fold. Take a deep breath in, look forward, transfer weight from feet into hands. Exhale, you can step or float back to plank. So huge inhale into your plank. Exhale, lower halfway down or all the way down. Tops of feet on the floor. Press the feet into the floor, lift your lungs forward into upward facing dog or cobra. And then exhale, upper thighs lift into downward facing dog. All right. And my hope is that the second dog feels a lot looser than the first, especially in your ankles. So the whole back of the leg got worked on, especially the ankles, especially the calf group, especially the lower legs. 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale. Take a deep breath in. Okay, great. So from here, you can come into plank and lower down to the floor. And we're going to come up into Sphinx in preparation for a frog. If you need a strap, we're going to bend the right knee and we're going to reach back and hold. So if your knee doesn't bend a lot or your shoulder doesn't reach back this far, there's any number of reasons why this would not work. But you can always use a strap and you can focus on the quad work. Okay? So just like seated on our heels, it might be a thigh and a knee practice for you. And now we're lying on the floor, you press your hip down, might be a hip practice as well. Okay? It's both more advanced and subtle because we're fine-tuning it. But if it's available, you would handle your toes to flex them and pull your toes down for an additional stretch along the front of your shin and the top of your foot. Okay, so this is kind of like, it's almost like yoga 2. All right, so if this looks like it would hurt, or if this starts to hurt the knee, go ahead and back off and just focus on the quad stretch and the hip stretch. If this is okay for all joints and all body parts, you can enhance the stretch in the shin by pointing your toes down. Those toe extensors connect below the knee. So you may feel that stretch all the way up the front side of your shin. 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. And take a deep breath in. Okay, great. And then you release that. And you're gonna do that on the other side. I'll turn around for demonstration purposes, but you don't have to. So your left knee's gonna bend. You're gonna reach back and either loop the strap around your foot and focus on the quad stretch and hip stretch. If all this makes sense for your joints and your connective tissue, you can fine tune it and enhance the stretch by pressing down into the toes, flexing the toes, plantar flexing the toes, and get a stretch on the top of the toes, the top of the foot, and you may feel the stretch continue all the way down the front side of your shin. In any case, you're lengthening the toe extensors, and you're lengthening the ankle distal flexor. So tibialis anterior, as long as all the joints are okay on this one. Everybody press your left hip into the floor. A couple more breaths here. Okay, great, and then you can release from that. Okay, so that was extreme flexion in that way. Now we're gonna go the other way. From hands and knees, you step your right foot somewhat forward, but what we're gonna do is actually like come into what almost is gonna feel like a half lunge. And we're working our way up into a pose called Malasana. So this is sort of like a half squat or half Malasana. My hands are both to the inside of my right foot. And as I relax my hips forward, if my foot was very far forward, this would be exclusively a hip phenomenon. I'm taking my foot back a little bit so you can really work on this distal flexion of the ankle. So much like in chair, the knee comes out over the toes. Of course, if that doesn't work for you, back off a little bit. But especially in yin postures, the knee comes over, you're really challenging the back lower leg. So you keep the heel down as the knee comes across. If the heel winds up being up and you're getting a good stretch that way, go ahead, do that. But otherwise, heel down, and you pause here for another couple breaths. So first we stretched in frog, we stretched the top of the foot. Here we're stretching the sole of the foot and around the ankle. So one more breath here, take an inhale. Okay, you can press your hands into the floor, shift your hips back, and let's try that on the other side. The left foot comes forward, but not really far forward. And we're gonna find a Malasana Squat. It's sort of like a hybrid of several postures. So the knee's gonna come over. That's gonna give you more flexion in your ankle. You press the heel down. And you can have hands on the ground, however you want to position the rest of you. But so my one hand's on the ground, my other hand's stabilizing the leg a little bit, and that allows me to relax into this stretch. So how far the knee goes over your heel, it depends on your ankle. If your heel comes up and that winds up giving you a better stretch, go ahead. For myself, most of the time, I get a better stretch with my heel down. So the option, one's not more correct. It's just different. Whatever gives you a better stretch. And so you keep the heel down, or I'm keeping the heel down as my knee goes across. 2 more breaths here. Okay, great. And then take hands to the floor, come up out of that and around to seated with legs extended. All right, and the right leg's going to stay extended. Marichyasana A is next, which we're heading toward a pose called Malasana. The last pose we did was the bottom half of that pose. It was the bottom half of Malasana. This is the top half of Malasana, where you keep your right leg straight, step your left foot up a little bit, and you're going to reach your arm to the inside of the leg and reach as far forward as you can. Now your hand can be on the floor. You can also hold the foot. If you'd like to, if you're not going to fall over, you reach the other foot down as well. But this is a big rounding of the spine, flexion of your spine. And as you're forward folding, the tendency is going to be for the knee to want to drop out. So if you can, keep your knee inward. And if you can, keep your left heel planted on the floor. So the footfall on the left feels, I'll say impressive. It is impressing into the floor. And there's a couple more breaths here into your low back. Okay, great. And then you press back up, extend your left leg forward. Very nice. And we'll bend right knee, place the right foot flat on the ground. The right arm's going to reach to the inside of your leg. And you can reach along the floor, if it makes sense. You can reach to the foot. Also use a strap if you'd like to. Also, if you're not going to fall over, both hands can hold the foot. Now from here, it's a rounding of the spine again. You're going to round your spine, siphon your right knee inward, so there's some activity on the inner leg, and then feel the pressure of the right footprint into the floor. And as you're driving the right foot down, rounding the spine, you're breathing into low back. This is almost essentially what our next pose is on the right side, especially upper body. So breathe into it. Enjoy the dorsal line stretch, the stretch of your back body. Big inhales and exhales here. All right. Very nice. So inhale, come up from there. And option number one is Pashimotanasana. You forward fold, and either with a strap or with your hands, you're gonna bring your toes back a lot. Now we will do this after the next posture as well, so you'll have a chance to do this twice then. The second option, and this is the other build, is Malasana, where you reach your arms forward. Now my heels happen to get on the ground. You might have to take your feet wider. You might have to sit up on a block or even higher. So maybe on a chair or something like that, and you can reach your arms forward like this. Keep your heels planted into the floor. It's going to be more challenging for those with bigger ankle bends to keep your feet together and forward fold like this. Okay, so heels press down, round your spine, reach your arms forward. And if this doesn't work for the joints, or it just doesn't work for your life, you feel there's no real incentive to get into that. You can get the good calf stretch, focus on the feet by reaching down either with a strap or with your hands, and digitally with your hands bring your toes back towards you and press your toes, and almost like bend your toes toward the floor. That will highlight the soles of your feet and your calves. Okay, so either here or here for another few breaths. And then if you're in your forward fold, stay there. If you are in this pose, if you're in Malasana, you can come out of it, extend your legs, and join other people in Pashimotanasana. Okay? Press your heels out. Open your toes, not only toward you, but it's like you're trying to point your toes toward your shins. That gets the soles of your feet, that gets the calves. you're using a strap, that might not happen as much. You can also open your toes with the power of your toe extensors. There's several breaths here. Okay, great. And then you come back up as a bit of like a lemon sorbet kind of break here. You're going to arch your back, draw your shoulder blades in, lift your lungs. It's a little bit of a palate cleanser from all the forward folds. You squeeze the muscles in your low back, draw your shoulder blades in, and breathe across your heart center. 2 times here. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. And 1 last time. Okay, great. And so the last big shin focus we're going to do is a variation of Janu Shasana. We're going to take the left foot into the leg somewhere. I have it in thigh, but you can keep it on the shin or even just get it out. Just get it out to the side a little. Or from here, either with a strap, so if you have a strap, you're going to take the strap, and what you're going to do is, if you hold the strap in both hands, you're going to turn the sole of the foot outward. So you're shortening the outer ankle and you're lengthening the inner ankle. So that's with the strap. If you can reach down and hold the outside of the foot, you can do the same thing with the outside or with your hand to the outside of the foot. So that's called eversion. You're also going to press the heel out, and particularly the inside heel. Inner heel presses out, and it's like your pinky toe is coming back even more than your big toe. So this is eversion and distal flexion. This highlights a muscle called the tibialis posterior, and you might be able to feel the tibialis posterior stretch happen even more when you do the next cue. So even though we're gonna do a cue, mind's eye right behind your shin bone as you lift your lungs up toward the ceiling. So lift your lungs up, 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 up. Still evert and distal flex the foot. Leg stays engaged, and if you kind of missed it, you can always round your spine again, reset the foot, and then lift your lungs again. And I mean, I'm not guaranteeing 100%, but I think above 50% people, at least in my history in like classes and workshops, over half the class always feels something behind the shins. That's in addition to anything working on the hamstrings or adductors or through the low back. There's also something there behind the shin, behind your tibia. And one last breath here. Take an inhale. Okay, and then exhale. You come out of that. You can relax your eyes open or closed and point and flex the toes a little bit. Notice what that did to your right shin, behind your right leg. And we'll try that on the left side. So please take your right foot either into thigh or into low leg or somewhere out to the side. And you're going to lengthen, twist, and option number 1, if you're using the strap, you hold the strap, and because our left foot's forward, you're going to pull back with your left hand and turn the sole of the foot outward. That's called eversion. Eversion, like making an exit. And if you are able to, you can also hold the foot. I hold the outside of the foot with my right hand. That helps kind of bring it over. Now, as I'm turning the foot out, I'm also sliding the heel forward. So inner heel travels forward, and little toe comes back toward me. So that's both eversion and distal flexion. Now that stretches a muscle called the tibialis posterior. It's called that because it's right behind the shin bone. It's right behind the tibia, posterior to the tibia. Notice right behind the shin bone as you lift your lungs. In addition to other stretches in the body, you may be getting a little more length through the tibialis posterior. Okay? And perhaps it's like you missed it because it's kind of being blended with all the other things you feel. You can round your spine a little bit, slide the heel out a little further, and then re-lengthen your lungs. Lift your lungs upward toward the ceiling. Yeah. And pause there, take several deep breaths. Okay. Very nice. And then as you exhale from there, release, extend both legs out. Press your heels forward and then point your toes forward. And do that twice more, feeling what I hope is a very like three-dimensional sensations in the shins. Okay. And then rely on the back. Press your feet through the floor. And as you inhale, you'll lift your hips up into bridge pose. Hands underneath you. You can hold the sides of the mat if you'd like. You can also hold the opposite hand. And feel your feet press down. Lift your hips up toward the ceiling. And before our final relaxation, feel the footfall connect with the floor, with your feet. And connect with your feet in a way that it helps neutralize your knees. So it might be a little bit different for everybody. But you press the outside of the feet down, you press the inside of the feet down. You press both the outside and the inside of your feet down in a way that feels like it's neutral for your knees. And so your shins can serve as the knees in that way. Take 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale. Exhale. And one last time. Okay, arms out of the way. You lower to the floor and you extend your legs for a well-deserved final relaxation. So soften down, soften in. And if you need to put any additional layers on, as the body cools down, go ahead. All right. And so you've taken corpse pose, you've taken Shavasana before. Feel the weight of your bones into the ground. Notice your contact points. You can do all that all at once. Let it go. And this was a rather full body practice today. We did a lot of stability work in legs. We moved the spine around in a few different ways. But really we focused on knees and below the knees. So allow your inner leg line to relax. Allow your outer leg line to relax. Relax your inner knee. Relax your outer knee. Relax your inner ankle. Relax your outer ankles. And then notice the feedback and the physical sensation between your knees and your ankles. So all the work we've done to mobilize and stabilize our feet and to take that burden off our knees. So notice the feedback up around your shins. Feel the weight of your calves. You can be with these sensations for a couple minutes. Okay. Very good. So from here, start taking some deeper inhales, deeper exhales. Guide a breath throughout your torso. And then guide a breath into your head, like you're dusting off the inside skull. Exhale. And guide a breath next through your shoulders, as if you're breathing into your palms, down your arms. And then guide a breath as if through your hips, through your legs, through your lower legs, and into your feet. Okay, and you can draw one knee into your chest. Give your knee a good hug. Breathe into your low back. And then switch legs. Draw your other knee in. Breathe into your low back. And then draw both knees in. Breathe into your low back. And then great. And then roll over to one side. Pause on your side. Take a deep inhale and exhale here. Okay, great. And then you can come up to seated. Comfortable seat, cross-legged or otherwise. And feel the weight of legs and hips as you notice the lightness through the spine, through the back of the skull. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for practicing with me. Hopefully this felt fun and informative, and a way to really find our footfall as we move around in space, and so that our legs are truly supporting us. So thank you so much. Take care. Namaste.